Hello, everybody. Hey, and welcome back to another edition of Courtside with Christy and Gabe on the Her Hoop Stats Podcast Network. I am Christy Winters-Scott, joined as always by my guy, Gabe Ibrahim. And Gabe, my goodness, let me tell you something. Sitting courtside with you, talking about all the things that have gone on in women's basketball over the last week. And we always say this, but I'm telling you, it is incrementally exciting every single time because there's always something happening that just spins the world around. And I just love it.
No, yeah. And I do want to say though, it was slightly less news. I want to be real with our audience. You know, we always come on here, we say, we got so much news. It was so crazy. It was slightly less news. However, we still had one of the best players in WNBA switch teams. Allegedly, that hasn't officially happened yet with Liz Cambage. Not that, and I'm going to save my opinions on that I'm doing a podcast with Jackie Powell. But
yeah,
we had that. We had Azzi Fudd's breakout game. We had Caitlin Clark doing Caitlin Clark things.
I mean,
it's like, yes, I think this week for me was a little less news, but we still had a ton. And you're right. I think the college basketball season, especially, is progressing. Like it's it's picking up speed. It's picking up momentum. And you should that's why you should follow at Her Hoop Stats. Go to herhoopstats.com, herhoopstats.substack.com for our newsletter where we're breaking down all of college basketball, WNBA, anything that's happening in women's basketball. We talk about it. And then you can follow us on Twitter. Our names just popped up below us. And we're going to do the thing too, where we split this up into 2 YouTube episodes, but 1 podcast. And I think I want to start. We should start though with college basketball because Christy, you kind of had a big Sunday.
Oh my goodness. It was a huge Sunday. But first and foremost, happy birthday to our youngest son, Jordan Scott. He turned 15 and he accompanied me out to Los Angeles with his older brother, Jerome Jr. And we had the best time, Gabe. I can't even tell you, it was like when you can intertwine work and family, I don't know. I am just in like a blissfully joyous space when that happens. And
Jordan's on varsity. We got to mention Jordan's on varsity. He made the varsity squad this year.
He did. And he's doing really well with them. South Lakes had a huge win over Madison in this last game that they played last night. And it's just so much fun just to watch him at the high school level. I can't believe it. Sometimes I pinch myself, but yeah, it was a fantastic Sunday in LA. Early call time. I had a 5:45 call time AM. Right. But we got in on Saturday evening and had a big dinner at the Cut restaurant. It's a Wolfgang Puck steak place. What? Gotta go if you're ever in LA. So good. And then after the dinner, which was great, they did happy birthday, gave him a chocolate souffle. It was like the best night and wrote happy 15th birthday on the little plate with chocolate. Anyway, but after that, we saw the Knicks because the Knicks had just played the Lakers. And they're like half the Knicks team was in the lobby. And I was like, excuse me, it's my son's birthday. How y'all doing? And I took some pictures and, it was just one of those like happenstances, but it was really cool. And then the boys stayed back in the hotel because 5:45, to be somewhere, not wake up call, 5:45 to be in the makeup chair. So I had to get out of there and go over, but then they did like a room service, at the Beverly Wilshire, which is pretty fancy smancy. And so they were chilling out, and which was really cool. So they came over to the studio in the middle of the day. But I did, the pregame stuff for the Tennessee UConn game. A lot of eyes. My phone was like a little active. But that was really cool. But just to be in that moment, Mike Hill was fantastic in studio with me with Fox Sports, and we had so much fun. He's so funny, by the way. But that game was, we've anticipated this is only the 3rd game in the last 3 years after a 13-year hiatus of these 2 teams not playing one another. UConn now has won all 3 of the last meetings, but it was at the beginning, you could just feel the history of that moment, and obviously missing the presence of the late great iconic Pat Summitt in that moment. But you know that the seeds that she's planted with Kelly Harper, and the way Kelly sounds, I'm telling you, she sounds exactly like Pat when she talks. Can't get that out of my head. But just to have the connection to Pat, and then knowing that Kelly played against UConn in all those great battles, and I believe she was, as a player, 4-1 against UConn. And then now as a coach, 0-3, so she's going to get it. But they're still working out, you know, with some injury situations, and Kean Green being out with an ACL, you know, just a couple of weeks ago. So it takes time to get reacclimated. But speaking of reacclimated, wow, Azzi Fudd. I mean, Gabe, what did you think of Azzi?
So, I mean, coming in, like I was thinking about all that history because I read Summit Up, Pat Summitt's book. I remember reading how she talked about why they decided not to play UConn anymore. Apparently there was, there are some things said in recruiting and some things said in interpersonal exchanges with her and Gino that rubbed her the wrong way. And then they eventually got through all that to have a more healthy relationship. But, I was coming in thinking like, I think this is the year Tennessee's going to do it. They're going to get that monkey off their back. They're going to beat UConn. They're going to really restart the rivalry because you need both teams to win to have a rivalry. If only one team's win, it's not a rivalry. And Tennessee hasn't been quite at that level until this year where they come in. What were they ranked? They were ranked in the
number 4.
Yeah. So they come in top 5 team, taking out a UConn team that had been struggling. And then boom, that spark from Azzi Fudd. And, I think it's good. It's great to talk about Azzi. She had the 25 points. And I really want to dig into what she did, but I also want to give credit to the rest of UConn because this team came together. Olivia Nelson-Adota, Kristen Williams, Lavina Westbrook, Dorka Juhas, Nika Moll, like they all came together and really played like the veteran squad that we thought that they should be, right? We saw, I think the team that we envisioned for UConn started showing out in that Tennessee game, even without Paige Beckers.
Right.
So without their best players, they really showed up. And Azzi, she was a beneficiary and a catalyst of all that, right? Like she had the stroke going. She was so confident. There wasn't the thought, right? There was, sometimes you see freshmen and there's not that hesitation. She just saw it. She got an open shot and she hit it. And she was just so good in that role. And I think she was part of the reason, like I'm saying, she was a catalyst for everything that UConn did. And they used her in really unique ways as a screener, coming back out to the 3-point line, and her ability to shoot above the break threes.
Right.
It's huge for them. It gave them so much more spacing, so much more danger in their offense that Tennessee really couldn't respond to it. And I think UConn, they just love to take advantage of those little tiny gaps you leave in the defense. They know exactly what they're doing. I was just so impressed with all of UConn, but I think Azzi was a big part of that.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, before the game, Mike Hill asked me, he said, who needs to be the X factor? Because Desharm wasn't playing either because she was injured in their last game. So she was out on top of Paige being out. Desharm had averaged 18 in the absence of Paige Beckers, and she's been out. So she's been a key piece to their offense, which has been struggling this season in terms of continuity and consistency and sustaining gaps in games where they had droughts in games where they just weren't scoring the ball well. And this is a team that's 7th in the country in defensive efficiency in UConn. So they can get it done on the defensive end, but they just had some lapses on the offensive side. And then with Desharm being out, I was like, oh, snap. Like, who is going to be that next one? And I was thinking, the first person I said was Azzi Fudd, right? Because it was her first career start. And I've seen her in action since she was a tiny wee baby little girl who's in the gym, like just a flat out bucket. Okay. And, she's obviously from the DMV, St. John's College High School in DC, but then played a couple of seasons of AAU basketball with GTS Fusion fam, with my daughter Brianna, who's over at Georgetown, UConn in a couple of weeks. I digress. I'm excited. But even with that, just seeing her in practices with GTS Fusion and in games, and just her incredibly laser-like focus. That's uncommon. A lot of kids don't have that. I don't care how old, I don't care if it's WNBA level. Like, a lot of people do not have that kind of mindset. And for her to know that the team needed her in that particular game, on that particular stage, in that particular rivalry game, as a freshman, I knew she was going to come up big because, like you said, her confidence level is unmatched as a freshman. She is amazing in terms of her balance, getting into her shots. She made 7 threes, but the one that was most important to me was, guess which one? Of her threes, the first one.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a wrap. Because as soon as I saw that first one go in, I was like, that's going to be money for her the rest of the game. And I think first half, she wasn't really clicking. But then in that second half, when UConn got really on a good rhythm with their offense, she was stroking that thing, like you said. But when that first one went down, it was 3-0 UConn. I was like, oh, sit back and watch this show because she's getting ready to go off, which she did. And I mean, a career evening for her, 25 points. And, you know, they needed it. I thought it was going to be Kristen Williams because last year she was the X factor. Thought she needed to be the factor. But it turned out to be Azzi Fudd, and I'm so happy for her.
No, and Kristen played well too. But yeah, it was just one of those games where I think this UConn team is really good, even when Paige is there, about taking what the defense gives them. And Tennessee, they tried a lot of different things. They just couldn't get out to Azzi Fudd, and she has just one of the prettiest strokes I've ever seen in basketball. And we're going to talk about some awesome scores. Obviously, we're going to talk about Caitlin Clark. I want to talk about Taylor Robertson from Oklahoma too. But I can't think of a college player this season I've seen with a prettier jump shot than Azzi Fudd. And it really just changed the game, and she gets them off quick. And, she played 39 minutes in this game, and she did a lot of her damage in that second half. And I just like that is some moxie there to come in, play the most minutes on your team as a freshman, especially when you haven't been as acclimated to this, to the team this year just because of the injuries. So for her to come in and really be the leader was so impressive. And I think, as I mentioned, everyone deserves credit, but she was just unbelievable. And I think once they get Paige back, those 2 or 3 weeks where we thought UConn might not be that good this year, that was fun, right? That's over. We can put that behind us. UConn's back. They will be really good. And even if they don't get Paige back this year, which is a possibility, it seems like they think Paige is going to come back at least for the tournament. Yeah. But even if they don't get Paige back this year, this team is still so dangerous with all the talent they have. If they just have just a little bit more injury luck, I think we're talking about another Final Four trip. But I don't know. I don't want to get it too far ahead of ourselves. But this game to me really signified that they're kind of back. I did want to mention Tennessee though, because Tennessee is struggling at the moment. I don't remember exactly how many games. Yeah, they've lost the last 3 of their last 4. They lost to an Auburn team, as we talked about, who was struggling all year. They lost to Florida, who unfortunately for me as a Miami Hurricanes fan is pretty good. And also we are not talking about the Miami Hurricanes today. That's not happening. Yeah,
that was. Yeah,
we don't have to talk. No.
Okay.
No talking about the kids. But Tennessee is not playing their best basketball. As you mentioned, they're dealing with injuries. But I just wanted to get your feel watching the game in the way you're watching it. What do you think's happening with Tennessee at the moment?
I mean, I think they're struggling with the injuries. I think that's so hard. And I know it's not an excuse, it's reality. So I just have to make sure I'm clear with how I'm stating that. It's hard when you have a player who is a key piece in Kian Green and what she was able to do at 6'1", just a very versatile piece, especially on the defensive end, to miss that rotational piece that they had. That was obviously a great rhythm to get them to number 4 in the country. And, to hit this bump in the road, literally and figuratively for them, I think it's tough. But I think this win helps UConn more than it hurts Tennessee. And I say that because of the conference that Tennessee is in. They still have to play South Carolina again. I think, and Georgia, I think they still have like 3 or 4 other teams that are in the top 25 within conference play before the tournament starts. And then of course they have the tournament to get right. Okay. So with UConn, they don't really have any other teams in the Big East besides DePaul that's maybe receiving votes and down there at the 25 to 30 slot. I mean, and that was a close game last time they played. So DePaul is probably going to give them the biggest challenge. Not to say other teams can't, but I'm just saying in terms of being ranked in the top 25, Tennessee has more chances to get right before tournament play and before the NCAA tournament. UConn needed this win in a big way because of seedings and the national landscape of things when it comes to ranked wins and the net rankings and all of that. So I am concerned about Tennessee because losing the way that they have lost games and understanding that coming into the UConn game, they were averaging 17 turnovers a game and that turnovers did them in against Auburn and Florida. In that second half, Gabe, some of those turnovers, I was like, wow. They just can't do that. Yeah. And coming into that game, Kelly Harper was saying, we just had so many live ball opportunities that we gave to Florida, at least 4 or 5 layups. Just long passes on the perimeter that just got picked and they went the other way. And she was adamant and saying like, we cannot have that. So that's something obviously that they need to shore up because obviously that's empty possessions that they can't even test their wares at the rim. Yeah. So for me, that's my biggest concern. Can they take good care of the ball and not give live ball opportunities to their opponents moving forward in the SEC? And that's a tall task. It's a tall task, especially when, you have lost 3 of the last 4. Your momentum is different than it was, 2 weeks ago. And you look back 2 weeks ago, I think it was the 23rd of January when Kean Green got hurt. So that's like the same timeline. So maybe they just have to rework their rotations and their chemistry, but they also need to lock in on their focus in terms of taking care of the ball.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the other thing that I want to point out is they did not win the rebounding battle, which for this year's Tennessee team is not what they want. They were first in the nation in rebounding. I'm not sure if they're still there. I haven't checked that stat before we got on, but that is big for them. And I think the injuries have hurt them. One positive though, that I want to point out is Ray Burrell kind of got her legs under her in that second half.
She did.
First half, it was tough sledding for her at the rim, and I want to see her as a draft prospect. I want to see her get a little bit more creativity in her finishing around the rim. But clearly, one of the big issues is that she's coming off an injury and she hasn't quite gotten her legs under her. So seeing her just be a little bit better in terms of the lift that she has in that second half, I think that's big for them. And I do think there's just an amount of reworking with Tennessee that needs to happen.
Yeah.
And look, you're in a tough conference. It's a tough conference. I mean, Auburn hadn't won, I think like 20, they had lost 20 straight SEC games coming into that one. They still almost beat a number of ranked teams before that. And since Florida is going to be ranked this week and UConn is obviously UConn. So it's not like they've lost to scrubs, but they also don't play any scrubs. Like they have Mizzou next, Vanderbilt at Alabama, then South Carolina. They finish off the season with LSU. So
LSU, right? Okay.
It's gonna be a tough road, but I do think they have like you're saying, I think they have time to get it together. And then I'm not gonna say they will because you never know, but I think they certainly can. So Tennessee fans don't freak out. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I think they're gonna be all right.
We have to talk about the woman of the hour, the month, potentially the year. Caitlin Clark. Good Lord. Good.
Amazing.
What is there a college player that you can remember like this? I can't quite come up with one.
No. And and even I had no like stamped in my head, but then now I'm trying to recollect and it's still no. And the thing about Caitlin Clark is she's so shifty and incredibly confident with her game. And I think, her logo threes that she hit I mean, my headset was like this during that game because, you know, they fought back and it was all in her hands. I mean, she had 46 points and a loss. And she, the week before, had 43 points in a loss. And it's so hard, I'm sure, for her because it feels like she's pouring all in to the moment and not being reciprocated with a victory for the team. And so while it's amazingly exciting, to say the least, it must be frustrating for her to lay all of that on the line and not get a dub. And but for me, just as a fan of the game, and you know, I need me a Caitlin Clark jersey because I'm a big fan of hers. And it's just it's the passion that she plays the game with and the fight and the confidence. I mean, that kid, you could see like on I think there's been over 4 million views of her logo shots.
Oh my God.
4 million. Like, so it's so good to, you know, number one, know that people are watching, number one, women's basketball, and watching what she is doing in the game. And, you know, I always say it's not just good for women's basketball, it's good for basketball. Like, to see players like that. And it's not Steph Curry doing it. It's not Dame Lillard, right? It's not Clay. This young lady is dynamic and tough. And the comments, I didn't read all of them, obviously, but some of them were like, hey, there's 3 minutes in the quarter and she's pulling. I love it. You know, it's like this kid, she doesn't care. Like, it's like, our team needs a bucket. I can make this shot. So it's not like, you know, she's coming in there randomly just firing up, hitting just the backboard. Yeah. Clearly she's worked on that. Clearly she's worked. I mean, the one from the Michigan logo.
Oh, her range is the gym. If she's in the gym, she's in range, right? Period. Yeah. And I also want to say, like, I know people are pointing out that they lost. They did lose to the number 6 team in the country, who is probably going to win the Big Ten. This is not a scrub team that she lost to. Michigan has a probable top 5 pick in Naz Hillman. They have a great team around her. They have a great coach who's been there for a long, who has been doing this for a long time. And they also lost to Ohio State, another ranked team. That being said, in their losses, in those 2 losses, they gave up 92 and 98 points. So I love what Caitlin's doing on the offense. It's incredible. It is amazing. It makes for great highlights for me personally. But they need to work on their defense. I don't even know what exactly to point to, because I think there's a lot of things to point to in terms of what they need to work on defense. But you know, it is tough too. Just like, this Michigan team is really, really good, and the bigs for Michigan were just like almost created to beat Iowa with the way Iowa was playing. They were playing a really tight, packed in 2-3 zone, and Naz would just pick them apart on those little passes. And so I think Michigan deserves a lot of credit. But yeah, man, I mean, you get 46 points, 46 points on 29 shots, 10 assists as well. I mean, oof. I mean, we talk about Caitlin Clark enough, but I did think we absolutely had to mention her.
Yes,
she's incredible. And we probably need to go through a Big Ten, you know, update, because the conference is crazy.
It's heating up.
I want to get one answer though, because I think at this point, Michigan has to be Michigan's favorite to win this conference. They're 11-1. Indiana's second. Indiana's still missing Mackenzie Holmes. Mackenzie Holmes might come back. She might come back this year. Yeah. We don't know yet. But I think at this point, it's kind of Michigan's conference to lose. Am I wrong in that?
No. I mean, the way that they're playing. And then in the Iowa game this past Sunday, they didn't even have Leah Brown on the floor. And she's their second double-figure scorer, almost 28 games. So, I mean, they were missing her. She had her foot in a boot. I believe it was her left foot. So I don't know if it's an ankle or a foot situation. But she didn't even play. And they were still able to do what they did to a really great Iowa team. And like you said, Kim Barnes-Rico, I mean, she has them clicking. And I believe they moved up to 4th this week in one of the national polls. I know they were 6th going in. Yeah. So, I mean, they're number 4 in the country. So we're not talking about 4 in the Big Ten Conference. Like, we're talking about, you know, nationally. And I just think they're playing with, I mean, a ton of confidence, but they're executing on both sides. And they're the best defensive team in the conference in terms of their stats. in terms of I think it's, they were only giving up 58 points per game coming into that contest, which was first in the Big Ten.
I can look that up. Also, though,
yeah, double back on that, because I think that's what it was. I was like, well, they're playing and that's what you said. Iowa needed better defense, but Michigan had that defense going.
Opponents are averaging 59.5 points per game against Michigan. Let me get the defensive rating though for our nerds. Yep, they are in her hoop stats defensive rating. They are 20th in the country, 10th in offense, leads them to being 8th in the overall her hoop stats rating. I'm sorry, I had a quizzical look on my face. I don't know if you noticed that.
I did.
Why is Louisville ahead of NC State? I realize NC State lost to Notre Dame, but I mean, they recently played. I feel like NC State should be ahead of Louisville by virtue of that win.
Just which poll are you looking at? It's not AP.
AP.
That's AP. Wow. Well, it wasn't on my list for voting.
What? I can't check Christy's vote. At
well,
the moment.
Darn. Oh well.
Oh well. We'll never know. But yeah, I think we're gonna have to get into a quick Big Ten update next week, just because the conference is getting heated, and I think it's really changed since the last time we went through it. I wanted to go on a little tiny rant, just quickly about Oklahoma. Boomer. Oklahoma, where the winds go sweeping down the plains. Oklahoma, they have their first 20-win season since 2016-17, and they just are one of the best teams to watch in college basketball. They have one of the nation's fastest and most efficient offenses. They're second in points per game in the nation for our nerds. They're 18th in HHS offensive rating, third in pace, third in possessions per game. That's what I call it, pace. And then 10th in points per shooting attempt. And I think it all goes back to Taylor Robertson. She's not only the best shooter in the country. I'm saying it, full stop. Best shooter in the country.
Wow, that's big.
She's one of the best shooters ever. So she is shooting 46.8% on 8.7 threes per game.
Dang.
Guess how many players have done that since her hoop stats started keeping track of these?
I can't think of any, actually.
0. She is the best.
See, there you go.
46. Wow. She's the only player ever to shoot above 46% on 8 or more threes a game. There's been players just taking more threes and were great 3-point shooters, but Robertson is just out of her mind right now. She's first in points per play in the nation. She's second, according to her hoop stats. If you look at Synergy's numbers, she's second in points per possession. Just an unbelievable player. And there's one more stat that I want to say. She has shot 51 2-pointers this year. She shot 201 3-pointers. The game's changed.
It has. I was going to say that's such an analytical situation there with her. Firing up over 200 threes.
Well, and you against West Virginia, it's really fun. I love looking at her stat lines. She's 26 points. She's 1 of 3 from 2, 7 of 14 from 3.
Wow.
Come on. Come on. And it's funny too. The point I have to bring up is Maddie Williams is actually leading Oklahoma in scoring, despite all I said about Robertson. But I love the way they use Robertson as a shooter. I think they have really nice sets for her. They're doing, I think one of the things I've really noticed in watching basketball more closely is if you're a good screener and you really pop out of those screens fast, you're going to get a ton of wide open shots.
Right.
Azzi Fudd does it. Taylor Robertson does it. You could go across the country and in WNBA and the NBA, men's, whatever. If you set good screens and you come out of them fast and you do every single step in that process at 100%, you're going to end up with a lot of open shots. So that's just I want to tell people that's what you do. If you want to be a shooter, that's what you do. So that's my little rant on Oklahoma, just because I started looking at their stats and I was floored by how good they were. Do you want to let's talk about them though in the context of the Big 12?
Sure.
Because this conference is another one that I think we're gonna have to do a nice roundup for, because there's a lot of really good teams. Iowa State's on top of the conference, tied with Oklahoma at 9-2. We got Baylor at 7-3, Kansas State at 7-4. Texas has lost a couple games in a row, so they're behind Kansas, and just so many good teams here, and so many excellent players. I mean, Ashley, every team you look at, they have a star player. Ashley Jones for Iowa State, Taylor Robertson and Maddie Williams for Oklahoma. Baylor has either the number 1 or number 2 pick, if you listen to people, Melissa Smith, and then obviously Aoka Lee. So just like, what do you think about this conference? And do you think, I mean, like, if you, I don't know, we don't have to handicap it, but just what are your general thoughts?
I mean, like all of the top conferences, there's, everyone's beating up on one another. So it's just interesting to watch how they're doing that, right? Not the fact necessarily that it is happening, but how it's happening. And when it comes down to conference play, it's all about matchups. It really is. It's about personnel, it's about style of play, and it's about matchups. And if you can take away the strengths of other teams and exploit their weaknesses, you're going to have a day. And I think that's what we're seeing with Texas, with them losing. And, the last couple of games, but we know what they're capable of, right? We know what they're able to do. And then when you see a team like Iowa State, I mean, they beat Iowa out of conference. They have some strong wins out of the conference, but within the conference to be sitting at the top, I mean, that's super impressive, especially with a team like Baylor and Melissa Smith sitting there, just a couple spots behind them. So you're looking at it on paper and you're like, well, wow, it should be Baylor, right? Because of what they did last year. They're bringing back pretty much everybody except for maybe 2 starters. But I think what is really intriguing to watch is how these teams game plan for one another and what they choose to take away and what they choose to say, hey, she can get hers. We're going to take away the next situation that we would have. Right. So I think that's interesting. And I love watching, the game plan of it all, and you usually figure it out by the middle of the first quarter. Like what are their rules today? Or what are they looking to do to disrupt this team? And what are they doing offensively to attack? Where are they looking to attack this particular team? So I think when you're watching any conference games, but when you're watching games, don't just watch it for the score and who wins or who doesn't. Look at the strategy of it. I mean, that's the beauty of the game. And I think that's what we've seen in this conference. But I think with Iowa State, I mean, they're just so disciplined. Yeah. And I think that's why they're sitting at the top.
No, I agree. I mean, it's an old boxing saying, styles makes fights, right? So I left this out when I was talking about Oklahoma. They're the team that gave up 61 points to Aoka Lee. Why? Probably has something to do with the fact that they're the fastest team in the country and they don't have a big to stand up to Aoka Lee in the paint. And I think that kind of goes up and down this conference. Like you're saying, you have a team like Iowa State who is so disciplined and they work really well, and they may have an advantage over a team like an Oklahoma or a Baylor that wants to get out and run. I do want Baylor though. Texas unfortunately had the misfortune of playing Baylor back to back. So that's a tough assignment.
Sure.
And I think Baylor probably has the highest ceiling of any team here. If you told me one team from the Big 12 made it to the Final Four, I'd probably say it was Baylor at this time. Okay. But they're really rounding the corner. I think they're rounding the corner on the 3-point shooting, on the strategy, and getting used to Nikki Collins' offense. Like they're rounding the corner, but I don't know. I mean, Oklahoma could beat them and in the Big 12 tournament, no problem. Like I wouldn't be surprised at that at all. Iowa State could do it. Kansas State has one of, if not the best player in the country at the moment. And then Texas, if you're not fully ready for that press system that Vic Schaefer runs, you're dead. It doesn't matter. And teams have gotten ready for it. Yeah. But so I think you're right. Styles makes fights in the Big 12 and across conferences. You look at the ACC is a little bit more not normal, but they're a little bit more together. It's a more cohesive styling in the ACC. But then you look at the Big 10, the Big 12, it's like these teams are just wildly different in everything they want to do. So I think it's really difficult to game plan in these conferences. I applaud the coaches, but I do love it. Just like what you're saying, that watching the fights, the style clashes that are happening. Do you want to get some games on the schedule for this weekend?
Absolutely.
Okay, I have a theory. Just go with me here. Just humor me. So I'm calling this Saturday.
Okay.
I mean, sorry, this Sunday, because there's games on Saturday that fall into this category.
Right.
But
okay.
This Sunday, false spring Sunday. We live in the district. It's getting a little warm, right?
It's warm and it's February. It's weird.
It's a false spring. We will get back to cold. I'm sure we'll get back to cold soon. It's a false spring. And that's why this weekend's false spring Sunday, because we're going to find out who's blooming into a contender.
All right.
And which teams are going to be stuck in winter come March. You like that?
I love that. It's a groundhogish. I like it.
I toyed with calling it Groundhog Day, but I want it to be a little different.
I like it. I like the difference.
But yeah, so we got Georgia, South Carolina. I'm not putting anything on Georgia. Poor Georgia. Anyone who has to play South Carolina, I feel bad for you guys. I'm sorry. But we have Michigan, Northwestern, back to the Big Ten.
Yeah.
We're going to figure out exactly how good Michigan is and how good Northwestern is, because I think Northwestern's probably a tournament team at the moment.
Right.
And they have a chance to really solidify their resume against Michigan. And I don't see a reason why they couldn't win.
Right.
We also have Vanderbilt, Tennessee. Tennessee needs to get back to their winning ways. And Vanderbilt has pulled off some upsets or upset this year. So that's totally possible. We have Virginia Tech, North Carolina battling for spots in the ACC. Whoever wins that probably has the inside lane to getting a higher seed in the tournament.
I like it.
And NCAA, Notre Dame, Louisville, and Notre Dame coming off that big upset of NC State, looking to take on Louisville, Duke, NC State, Arizona State, Arizona, Colorado, Stanford, LSU, Texas A&M, Oregon State, Oregon, all these teams really hoping to say, we are contenders. Make sure you have us in your top 5 seeds for the NCAA tournament, in your bracketologies this weekend. So any of those games really, really interesting to you?
Oh man, you rattled off a ton of them, but I would tell you what, I am all for a great Big Ten battle in Michigan and Northwestern. I think that, with the tournament starting in 3 weeks, I think, well, maybe a month, but I'm pushing it. So 3 weeks and a little bit of change, 3 weeks and some change. I think it's always intriguing this last month of conference play, but I think, with Michigan coming off that big win, sometimes it's tough. That next game, to come back and bring that same moxie. So that I think that's going to be a big test for them, especially against a team like Northwestern with their blizzard defense that they're going to be trying to be disruptive, and they rotate quickly. They're right there up the line, and Burton and her quick hands. Come on, man. That's going to be a great challenge. And who knows if Leah Brown is back?
Yeah.
For that game. So I think that's going to be something to keep eyes on. But I mean, throughout the ACC, I think also there's some really great games. I mean, I love that matchup with Virginia Tech and North Carolina. I think that's going to be I love Kenny Brooks, even when he was at James Madison and what he did there, winning championship after championship in the CAA. I think that's going to be a true test, especially, well, I know we're not talking about Miami, but I was going to say, especially since North Carolina had that big win.
They had the big win over blank
last weekend,
over redacted. We're not mentioning the score, certainly.
No, I was quite surprised by that.
If you want to go look at the Miami North Carolina game on your own time, we're not talking about it.
We're not going to talk about it. But I kind of ran down the road to a dead end on that one. But it was the story, and it just happened to be their previous matchup. So sorry. So I like those matchups off the top. And I know there's so many games this weekend that are going to be fantastic matchups. I know in the Big East on Sunday, I know UConn takes on Marquette. I think that's going to be a big game too. And I'll be on that game with Lisa Byington, by the way.
Oh, really?
That's why that's going to be a good game in a lot of ways, because I miss Lisa. She's with the Milwaukee Bucks now, so I miss working with her. So finally get
awesome.
Back with her.
We get Lisa. We get Lisa back for a game. That's great.
Lisa D. Yay!
Oh, that's awesome.
That'll be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah. We also have the Red River shootout. Well, I guess we don't call it the Red River shootout anymore, but I'm calling it the Red River shootout. Oklahoma and Texas on Saturday. There's big games throughout the week. I just want to name a Sunday because I think it's fun. But yeah, no, I think that I'm with you on the Virginia Tech North Carolina game. I wrote a story on Virginia Tech earlier this year. I'm really high on Elizabeth Kitley. I think Asia Shepherd is a WNBA player. I think they're going to face a big test in North Carolina with that defense, especially if North Carolina can score the way they did in their previous game against an unknown opponent. Redacted opponent. I'm kind of interested in this Arizona game. Arizona State. First off, rivalry game. Second off, it's going to be what day is that? Is that the 11th? Okay, so it's going to be the second one of a back-to-back with these two teams. So they're going to be familiar with each other. And Arizona State just pulled off a big upset of Oregon, and they beat Oregon State as well. So, look, I'm just saying that'll be a fun game if it's close, and I think it will be. And then LSU Texas A&M also going to be a frisky good game. So, just your Sunday, spring Sunday. Hey, I'm going to be wearing a tank top because it'll be like 60 degrees. I'll be outside, but you got to have it in your back of your mind, like, hey, winter could come back. Don't get too comfortable. Don't get too comfortable.
Don't get too happy
with what's happening now. Okay, that's all I want to talk about with college basketball. Is there anything else you want to mention?
With college basketball, no. I'm just going to leave it right there. And I thought, we really did a comprehensive examination of NCAA women's basketball. So many great things, so many great storylines. And next week is going to be even more exciting because it's like you build bricks with things, it's just like boom, boom. I love it as we head into conference tournament play. And then of course the NCAA tournament. So that'll be awesome to continue to keep track of.
Yeah, these podcasts are going to get longer as we head into March. We're already pushing to an hour and 30 minutes pretty much every time. That doesn't matter. You guys seem to be watching it and listening to it.
It's fun.
Sounds great. There's chapters, by the way, on like the bar below us or in the podcast description.